My cousin married my ex-boyfriend Tyrant, trashed me in her wedding speeches, and then tried to break into my house at night. My cousin Julia, 27, started dating my ex-boyfriend Louis, 29, 2 years ago. I, 27, was with Louis for 3 years. We started dating after he graduated from university, and I was in my second year of college. We broke up a couple of weeks after my 20th birthday. Honestly, the relationship wasn't the best, and I deeply regret that my first adult relationship was with this person. We seemed like the perfect couple from the outside, but in reality, everything was different. He was a very insecure and controlling person, and he forbade me many things, going to bars with friends or interacting with male friends. He constantly monitored me, and if I didn't do what he wanted, he would manipulate and gaslight me, convincing me that I was to blame for the relationship going wrong. I was very afraid of losing him and did everything possible so that Louis wouldn't leave me. But even that wasn't enough for him to stay. In the end, he did dump me, stating that it wasn't working out between us, and then blocked me so I couldn't contact him. I really tried to get back in touch with him, but after the breakup, he completely disappeared, and 2 months later, I found out from acquaintances that he already had a new girlfriend. So it was a complete waste of my time. After the breakup, we didn't speak for a long time, but then, when I turned 25, he finally unblocked me and wrote birthday greetings. I didn't respond and thought it was strange that he was writing to me at all, as by that time I already had a boyfriend. But he kept writing to me despite my silence, and in the end, I had to block him. After that, we didn't speak again for several months. However, just a few months after my birthday, Julia invited me to her house. When I arrived, she said she wanted to introduce me to her boyfriend, and it turned out to be Louis. It turned out he wrote to me on my birthday precisely because he wanted to smooth things over with me before this. They met at work, started dating, and were very serious. Julia and I had been very close since childhood, so this was a real shock to me. She knew perfectly well how badly Louis and I broke up and how toxic he was to me. Therefore, I was absolutely stunned to learn they were now together. She said she understood my discomfort, but asked me to give him a chance. I really wanted to try to accept this news, but it was too much for me. I wanted to be happy for Julia, but Louis was the person who caused me a lot of pain in the past. This was my first serious relationship. In middle and high school, I only had crushes. He royally messed up my life, so I harbored huge resentment towards him for his behavior. I tried as tactfully as possible to explain to Julia that while I wished her happiness, I couldn't accept that she was now with Louis and didn't want to be part of her life anymore. She was very upset and tried to talk to me several times, but I couldn't come to terms with it because she was the one who knew best how toxic he was with me and how deeply he traumatized me. But she continued to date him anyway, claiming he had changed and was better now. I didn't believe it. She was free to have a relationship with him. I had no problem with that. But I also had the right to exclude him, and with him, her, from my life. For me, it was simple. Of course, it was hard for me because Julia and I weren't just cousins, but also very good friends. However, for my own peace of mind, I had to make this decision. After she announced she was dating Louis, I almost stopped communicating with her. For the last 2 years, we were cold towards each other. When she realized I wasn't going to talk to her, she became distant herself, and I don't blame her for that. We saw each other at family events and simply ignored each other, whereas before we always stuck together and gossiped about everyone. Now everything had changed, and honestly, I was fine with that. Everyone has their own life and is free to do as they please. I had no grievances against Julia. I just didn't want to talk to her anymore. That's all. Well, apparently, she took it to heart and wanted revenge. She started spreading all sorts of nasty rumors about me among our relatives, trying to ruin my reputation. I thought this was completely unnecessary, as I would never do that to her. Never. Even despite our tense relationship, over the last year, she told me that I was the reason for the breakup with Louis and that I supposedly had no moral principles. Together with Louis, they spread rumors that I flirted with other guys right in front of him, and that this was supposedly the real reason for his jealousy and desire to control me. They made it seem like I was the flirtatious woman who made him insecure, when in reality, it was exactly the opposite. He was the one who excessively flirted with other girls and expected me to be okay with it, whereas he himself didn't like that I had male friends I simply talked to. He constantly manipulated and gaslighted me, forcing me to gradually give up communication with everyone dear to me. I was very hurt that they tried to smear me in front of my own family, but to be honest, I was too busy with my life to seriously worry about it. Besides, no one seriously believed them, so I decided not to react. I knew my reaction was exactly what they wanted, so I deliberately didn't rise to the bait. Furthermore, I understood perfectly well that if I wanted to, I could easily stop it all. Just talking to my aunt would quickly sort things out. Even though I was no longer close to Julia, I still had a very good relationship with her mother. My aunt is a federal judge, and I was sure she would do the right thing. She is my father's older sister, and everyone knows she has an iron character, and she would never do anything dishonest or wrong. I don't understand how Julia could turn out like this, considering who her mother is. One conversation with my aunt would have been enough to stop this whole circus. But I also understood that it would seriously harm Julia herself, as she was quite financially dependent on her mother. She recently launched her own jewelry line, but as far as I heard, things weren't going too well for her. Anyway, I didn't want to bother my aunt with such trivial matters, and was confident I could handle it myself, so I didn't tell her anything. Besides, I was even curious what other ridiculous rumors they would make up about me, as my cousins regularly came and told me what Julia had said about me again. So for me, it became more of an amusement and entertainment. Then, 6 months ago, they got engaged and announced the wedding date. Soon my parents received an invitation, but I did not. I was perfectly fine with that. I didn't expect an invitation to their wedding anyway. Even if I had been invited, I wouldn't have gone, given everything that happened between me and Julia, not to mention Louis. The wedding took place 3 days ago, and for me, it was an ordinary day. I didn't really think about what was happening there. But at some point, my phone literally started blowing up with messages from relatives. Everyone was actively discussing some speech given by Louis and Julia at the wedding, and I was completely baffled. Then my parents called and said we needed to talk urgently. It was they who told me what happened, and at that moment, I lost it. It turned out they decided to seize the moment and gave a disgusting speech at the wedding about me, spreading all sorts of filth to a large audience. They wanted to turn all the relatives against me, and might well have succeeded if I hadn't had evidence I could use against them. Julia and Louis were cunning enough not to mention my name directly, but they constantly referred to some ex-girlfriend who wasn't at the wedding. This clearly pointed to me, because who else could they mean? They repeated all the rumors they had long been trying to spread about me, that I was a flighty gold digger who was completely dependent on Louis and expected him to pay for everything. He supposedly had to support me because I insisted on it, being a regular student with no extra money who demanded financial support from him. But this was also an absolute lie. I always insisted we split date expenses equally and never expected him to pay for anything, let alone demanded it. But the worst thing they said about me was that I supposedly cheated on it. And according to them, it was the cheating that caused our breakup. At the wedding, they declared they were very happy I was no longer in their life and that I wasn't at the celebration, supposedly because they didn't want such a negative influence near them. They even gave the relatives an ultimatum. From now on, family events would invite either me or them. If I were present, they wouldn't be there. After this, people literally flooded my phone with messages about this situation, but I only learned the full picture from my parents. And, as I said earlier, I was incredibly angry. I thanked my parents for leaving the wedding immediately after that speech, unwilling to tolerate the filth Julia had resorted to. My parents also told me my aunt was completely bewildered by what happened and immediately spoke to them to clarify if what Julia said in her speech was true, as it was completely unlike me. And she was right, I really hadn't done any such thing, and her doubts about the truthfulness of her daughter's words were completely justified. Anyway, after I found out exactly what they said about me in the wedding speech, I decided to stop holding back and found old screenshots of chats proving they were lying. I had to dig quite a bit, and it took a fair amount of time scrolling through the chat history to find the messages I needed. Fortunately, after a very long time, I managed to find the chat between me and my ex that I was looking for. These messages were sent around the time of our breakup, and he was being particularly toxic and cruel then. He said a bunch of vile things to me, like how he regretted ever dating me, that he wasted 3 years of his life when he could have been with others because he supposedly had plenty of options back then. But now, finally, he would date other women. There was no mention of any betrayal, and I'm sure if I had actually cheated on him, he wouldn't have let it go so easily. I scrolled further back in the chat and found other messages where he was toxic towards me. After that, I posted it all online. No explanations, no captions, because the chat spoke for themselves. And that's exactly what happened. After posting the screenshots, people started messaging me again and commenting under the post, saying they already knew everything said about me was untrue. They thought it was very strange that I could behave like that, as they'd known me since childhood, and I wasn't the kind of person capable of such thing. These screenshots clearly proved it was all lies, and the realization that my family was on my side, not theirs, meant everything to me. Moreover, several people messaged me who had left the wedding precisely because of what was said about me. So although Julia and Lewis hoped they could turn people against me, their speech backfired on them. And now they have absolutely no one on their side. Even my aunt, Julia's mother, turned her back on them. They contacted me right after the wedding and literally begged me to forgive them. Because, as it turned out, after my aunt saw the screenshots I posted, she talked to them and said how deeply disappointed she was that Julia turned out to be such a liar and tried to ruin my reputation simply because I didn't want to continue a relationship with her after she hooked up with my ex. By that point, most guests had already left the wedding due to all the drama. My aunt also told Julia she was deeply upset by her behavior and expected better from her. So until she apologized to me and I forgave her, my aunt wanted nothing more to do with them. And then my aunt left the wedding, despite Julia desperately trying to change her mind, as Julia was truly very financially dependent on her mother. That same night, the two of them called me and started tearfully apologizing because they realized they couldn't manage without my aunt's support. She had been financially supporting Julia for quite a long time. Julia was actually planning to close her business and take a break, meaning she would depend on her mother even more. But since my aunt decided to cut her off, their plans were ruined, and Julia became seriously worried about her future. So she reached out, wanting me to forgive her, delete the post, and talk to my aunt. I was too angry about everything that had happened and refused, blocking them both. But since then, they've been desperately trying to contact me and persuade me to change my mind. And now I'm really confused. I don't know what to do. My aunt is a very decent person. We talked. She wrote to me herself the day after the wedding to apologize for everything Julia did. I said I didn't want my relationship with Julia to ruin my bond with my aunt. I hadn't allowed it before and wasn't going to now, so everything is fine between us. And I know for sure that if I talked to her, I could sort things out for Julia. But honestly, I don't feel obligated to do that. She's an adult woman and should deal with the consequences of her actions herself. On the other hand, I feel uncomfortable knowing I can help her and consciously choosing not to. Anyway, I'm confused, so please help me. Am I being bad by not wanting to talk to my aunt and persuade her to forgive my cousin after she gave that disgusting speech at her wedding smearing me? Well, I suggest pausing this video right now and writing in the comments what you think the author should do. Reconcile with Julia or do nothing? Personally, my opinion is that her doubts about being able to help but consciously choosing not to, as she says, are completely unfounded. Because Julia could have at least simply done nothing too, but she did. She caused trouble. That is, Julia in this situation was only concerned with how to cause maximum trouble for her friend. So yes, I think nothing needs to be done here. Update 1. Hi. First of all, a huge thank you to everyone for the comments and support. Before moving to the update, I want to clarify one thing. My parents attended the wedding, as did many other family members, because they belong to the older generation. They didn't know about the rumors being spread about me at all. Lewis and Julia told all this mainly to our cousins, relatives our age. They didn't involve the older ones. So, my parents had no idea what was being said about me and came to the wedding solely out of respect for my aunt. Although they suspected something was wrong between me and Julia after she started dating this guy. But I deliberately didn't tell them anything or complain, just like I didn't tell my aunt, because I didn't want to drag them into such petty squabbles. I was above it, unlike Julia and Lewis. Anyway, the point is, my parents weren't aware and therefore went to the wedding. No one needs to be blamed or get angry at them. As soon as they and some other people from the older generation learned what was said about me at the wedding, they left immediately and haven't spoken to Julia and Lewis since. So that's clear, I hope. Now, to the point. A week has passed since the wedding. I blocked both Lewis and Julia so they couldn't contact me, but that didn't stop them. They keep creating new social media accounts and sending me letters, although I block them again and again. They are desperate, but I firmly decided I'm not going to intervene or help them. I continue to stay in touch with my aunt, and she made it clear. She will only start supporting her daughter again after I forgive her. But honestly, I don't think I have to forgive my cousin, because for a whole year, I stayed silent and let them say nasty things about me, simply because I didn't take them seriously. And they took that as a green light and crossed all boundaries. Now let them face the consequences. There's another point. Frankly, I don't think she deserves her mother's support at all. She's almost 30, and in my opinion, at that age, a person should understand what they want from life. I simply can't imagine still being financially dependent on parents at this age. And it's not that she's uneducated or incapable. She's just always been too lazy to hold down any job. Even when we first graduated, she behaved the same way, and I hoped she would grow out of it. But nothing changed. So essentially, I'm even doing her a favor, because the lack of financial help from my aunt might finally teach her to work, or at least take something seriously. Anyway, I've made up my mind. I'm not going to help her. I discussed it with my parents to get rid of the guilt, and they said they fully support my decision. Whether to forgive her or not is my choice alone. I'm not obligated to forgive her if I think she doesn't deserve it, even if I worry about her future. Besides, Lewis still has a decent job and can support the two of them if they really want to live without my aunt's help. In the end, I talked to my parents, friends, and you guys here, and most think I have no reason to feel guilty. And honestly, I feel much better. But I did delete that post with the chat screenshots because I saw no point in keeping it up. The whole family already knew what happened, and I didn't want it to stay on my profile, as many other people follow me, and it would be hard to explain it all to them. So it was easier to just remove it. Now, I'm trying to focus on myself and let go of all the anger and guilt that built up inside me these past few days. I've gone back to meditating, trying to distract myself and get through this as calmly as possible. And I really hope Julia and Lewis will finally start focusing on their own lives instead of building them around me and making me the reason they even get out of bed in the morning, as has been the case so far. I think it will be better for all of us. Update 2. Hi. It's been a month since the wedding, and as far as I know, Lewis and Julia are back to their old ways. My aunt still isn't talking to them because I haven't forgiven them. Well, at this stage, I'm not obligated to anyway, because I understand perfectly well their apologies weren't sincere. They apologized only for the sake of money from my aunt. They weren't sorry. They just wanted financial support. A couple of days after unsuccessful attempts to convince me to forgive them and talk to my aunt, they gave up when they realized I wasn't responding. And then they started spreading rumors about me again, but this time especially inventively. It turns out they're now telling everyone that I'm deliberately trying to destroy their relationship with my aunt because I want to take all the inheritance for myself. This makes no sense at all. Utter absurdity, as if I'm capable of such a thing. My parents are financially comfortable. It's even laughable to talk about. I have a good job myself and support myself. I don't even think about any inheritance because, God willing, at this rate, I won't have to depend on anyone financially at all. Maybe they need the money? Hence such thoughts. Anyway, they're now telling this to everyone they encounter in the family, which happens often. We all live in the same city, and they live near several of our relatives. People are starting to avoid them like the plague, but they still find a way to talk about me. I don't understand at all why they are so fixated on me. I haven't done anything for a month, just ignored them, and they still can't let go of what happened. Anyway, last week I finally got fed up with it all and told my aunt everything. She said that now, even if they apologize, she still doesn't plan to resume contact with them. She even told Julia this directly and blocked her again. Now they are even angrier at me than before. I know this because they created another email account and sent me a very nasty message. This is now the only way they can contact me. They wrote that I will pay for all of this. Yeah, terrifying, really. I understand they are losing it now, and although I'm not genuinely scared, it's all, to put it mildly, irritating. I replied to them that if they tried anything against me, I would immediately call the police and send them to jail without a second thought. So let them think about what they are doing. I hope that cools them down. If not, well, I have an excellent security system at home. Update 3. So, 4 days ago, I received a letter from Lewis and Julia in which they wrote that I would have to answer for everything I did. I warned them again that if they tried anything against me, I would immediately report them to the police. But that didn't stop them, and they did the stupidest thing they could. Last night, they tried to break into my house. Julia has been to my house many times, and she knows perfectly well that I have a very advanced security system installed. Therefore, as soon as they even tried to open the door, the system immediately alerted me. I don't understand at all why they thought my door might be unlocked in the middle of the night. I immediately called the police and reported that someone was trying to break into my house. I had a feeling it might be Julia and Louis, but just in case, I didn't take any risks. The police arrived about 15 minutes later, and unfortunately for them, they were dressed like real burglars. They were detained near my house while trying to run away. They came on bicycles. They tried to convince the police that they knew me personally and weren't planning to steal anything. They just wanted to break in and talk to me, scare me a little. I don't understand at all why they admitted to that, as if it made their behavior more acceptable from a legal standpoint. As soon as handcuffs were put on Julia, she burst into tears and started begging me not to press charges. But I have not one drop of sympathy left for her. You can't keep messing up and expect to be forgiven. Louis just looked at me with pure hatred, but I didn't care at all. I'm used to it by now. After that, I just went to sleep. I had work early in the morning, and in the morning, I told my aunt and parents everything. They said they already knew. Julia used her phone call from the station to call my aunt and ask her to get her out, but my aunt didn't even go to visit her. So now no one knows what will happen next. I am definitely going to file a report against them because I want a restraining order. They've obviously lost it, and I no longer want anything to do with them. Well, that's all. Unfortunately, there are no more updates. In this story, only one small question slightly concerns me. What do you think? Is Julia's mother really doing the right thing by cutting off all relations with her like this? I've stated my position regarding such mothers many times in other videos. For me, it's somewhat unclear. No matter what your child is like, why treat them like that? I mean, you can stop giving money, that's understandable. You cannot bail them out of jail, but still, cutting off all communication, well, to me, it's somewhat strange. Although at the same time, I absolutely understand the motives of such mothers. Write your opinion in the comments. Let's discuss this topic once again. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Watch our previous video, which you'll see right here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to listen to similar stories in the future, and good luck to you.